get closer to
Get closer to my own advice.
Test.
Yeah.
There you go.
May I have a motion to open the meeting? Second? And yep. Okay, got that. Could we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, before we get started, I'd like to make a motion to reverse the public comments second and the students of the month first. May I have a motion? Ed? Heather? Okay. This is always my favorite time of all the meetings, and that's Students of the Month for all of our schools, because it celebrates why we are here. Okay, the first will be the elementary. Oh my God, you're so cute.
I feel very underdressed.
Good evening, everyone. Okay. Mic check. Okay, so I'm here to present. My name is Mrs. Samuel. This is Mr. Darling, and this is Scarlett Fisher, our leader of the pack for March. She's from Mrs. Hollyfield's class, and she's also here to support her Scarlett today. So I'm just going to share a few words that Mrs. Hollyfield shared with us about Scarlett and why she's getting this wonderful award tonight. So she's very deserving of this title. She's happy, friendly, caring. She takes care of her teachers, her peers. She continually makes great choices every single day. She works very hard in her reading, writing, and math lessons. She loves to learn and actively participates in every single lesson in kindergarten. Very great, Scarlett. She's a leader, she's confident, and her teacher and teacher's assistants and Ms. Hajba all wish that she carries this all the way through her career here at Highland. Congratulations, and here you go, Scarlett.
Scarlett.
Okay, middle school.
Oh, you're great. All right, so for the middle school, we have our sixth grader this month, Fareen Alam, who is our March 2022 leader of the pack. So her teachers had a number of wonderful things to say about her, so I'll only read a few, otherwise we'd be here a long time. Fareen is a wonderful student with a ton of strengths. She has a lot of knowledge to share. She advocates for her fellow classmates. That was from Mrs. Paff. Mrs. Curlis said Fareen excels academically, but also socially. She is a leader and a role model to all. And that was from Mrs. Curlis. And then my favorite one from Mr. Banks. I'm going to read the whole thing. She's an amazing student. This is not just because of her grades, but also because of her positive personality, her resilience while working on a challenging task, her drive to complete work, and her ability to work with a small group. Not only is she able to get her work completed in class when we work on projects, she also has the confidence in her work to help students around her who have a question. Fareen is an asset in my class, and I'm glad that I get to see her in both of my electives, and that's from Mr. Banks. So congratulations on being our March 2022 leader of the pack.
Okay, high school.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Mr. Zimmer and myself, the high school would like to award Miss Alicia Mokel the March Leader of the Pack Award. Every single one of her teachers has amazing things to say about her. It's always hard to try to shrink all this down into a short speech. Mr. Scuro adds, Alicia is a great choice. She is not only a gifted student, but one of high moral character. Alicia values learning and sees education as less of a checklist of completing assignments and more of a process of knowing and applying them. Ms. Otis adds that Alicia is the best. She is intelligent, kind, hardworking, and gives 200%, creative, thoughtful, and I can go on and on and on. One time when we made Sundays in class, she asked if she could bring one to another teacher, and then remembered that the teacher was lactose intolerant. So she brought the lactose-free option. I thought that was incredibly considerate and thoughtful. Mr. Short adds, Alicia is a dependable and respectful student, a kind, intelligent, and generous person, a quiet leader, and very talented musician. Mr. Manali said, Alicia is an impressive student and person, mature, polite, respectful, self-motivated, and always makes sure to say, have a nice day when leaving his class. Ms. Meisel said that Alicia is such a wonderful gem of a student. I mean, any student who comes to my room to read Shakespeare only for fun has earned a special place in my heart. To study the nuances of the language with her, to hear her plumb the depths of a character's motivations, is a lovely way to spend it after school. And Miss Whiston said Alicia is always seeking to go further with the content. She stays after school to ask deeper, higher level thinking questions. She has an amazing way of conceptualizing and connecting topics across all of her studies. Congratulations, Alicia.
Okay, so next we will have Frank Alfonso doing the sports recognition.
Okay, this year we had 5 student athletes represent us in the New York State Championships in 3 different sports this past winter. So the coaches are here and the athletes are here. So I'll let Coach O speak first about indoor track. Matt, come on up, Matt.
How's everyone doing? My name is Chris Osterman, and we are here to recognize all of our athletes that made it to states. But I'm just going to talk about Matt very quickly. Matt has been phenomenal and a joy to coach since I've started here. He's the type of kid where, with track with a lot of things going on, I could send him over to the jumping pit, and I knew he would kind of do the coaching himself, so to say. And I'm really going to miss Matt Petty. Matt finished 2nd in the section in long jump and 3rd in triple jump. His 2nd place finish earned him a spot in the state meet, where he finished in 19th place. And if you consider there's probably hundreds, if not thousands, of kids doing the long jump, I think that's a phenomenal accomplishment. And just to put that into perspective, if you were to take a basketball hoop and tilt it on its side, and then add another one to it, that's how far Matt Petty jumped. So it's kind of crazy to think about, and I'm really going to miss coaching Matt Petty. Thank you.
Okay, next up is Coach Foreman with bowling. 2 bowlers, come on up.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Pete Foreman. I'm the both boys and girls varsity bowling coach this year. I've been doing it for the last 3 years. Both Izzy and Olivia have been on the varsity bowling team both since they were in 7th grade. And since I took over the team, they've been the anchors of our team. They've done a great job. They're two of the nicest people that I've ever coached or probably ever met. I enjoy going to practice every day. I enjoyed going to all the meets and all the tournaments that we went to. Just to let you know, our team this year, we didn't qualify for the sectional tournament, but both Izzy, Olivia, and Gavin Landry qualified for our sectional tournament, Section 9 section tournament. And from the section tournament, Izzy bowled tremendous. She averaged 183 for the 6 games that she bowled, and that got her into the All-Star team to go to states. Olivia qualified from sectionals by having one of the top 5 averages for the All-Star team. So we went to states. We finished 9th in the state tournament as an All-Star team. They both did a great job. Olivia averaged 175 for the 6 games at state, and they both bowled above their average, and we just had a great time. And they're just 2 tremendous people, and I'm proud to have coached them.
Next up is Coach Mcfarland with his 2 wrestlers. 2 wrestlers, come on up. There you go.
Good evening, everybody. Coach Mcfarland, Logan Smith, Chris Gatto. They were our 2 representatives this year for small school Section 9. They both won the section title. What's great about Logan, I've been coaching him since 8th grade. He's a kid that tested up. He winded up qualifying for a 100-win club this year with all the different victories that he had. Chris Gatto earned that honor as well. Both of them went up to the states, competed, did really well. Both student athletes are looking to go to college and wrestle. Logan is going to Western,
University of Southern Maine.
University of Southern Maine, and Chris Gatto is looking to go to Oswego. And what's great is they're going to have a great collegiate career. They've been a tremendous asset to the program. They both were our team captains. Not only were they team captains and team leaders for the team, but they also provided us a chance to win leagues again this year. We were league champs as a team for the 2nd time in school history, and they were also tremendous help with running our Pee Wee program and our feeder system in here, and they always stay after and help coach and be great role models for future athletes to come. I'd also like to take time to thank the Board of Education for allowing us to start this program years ago. It's been very beneficial to all the kids that have been a part of it. We've had tremendous success. I'd like to thank all administrators, everybody, transportation, custodial, Frank, Elizabeth, everybody who helps make the program run. You guys did an outstanding job. We hope to continue and have a successful program. But let's give a round of applause to these 2 gentlemen. They earned it going up to the state title.
Thank you.
They were.
Okay, next we're going to have a student presentation where Kevin Rizzo and the student come up.
Good evening.
I'm here representing the Highland Middle School, and I have Ella Fuller and Riley Klein. They're going to come through with a presentation. First, I'm going to start it off, as I usually do, with a small story of how this tiny project turned into what it eventually ended up turning into. I have my two colleagues here, Cody Weaver and Leah Harris, and it was actually Leah Harris's idea. She had come into our classroom and said, I would like to tap one tree and show the students how the sap runs. And over the next 15 minutes, we somehow figured we were going to start to tap dozens of maple trees, build an arch, split a cord of wood, build a filtering system, build a second filtering system, find pans to boil the syrup in, and invite the elementary school, and then conduct a pancake breakfast for our 8th grade and 7th grade. And at one point, about 3 days after that, I could hear Miss Harris in her classroom talking to herself, saying, I just wanted to tap one tree. So either way, our project came to fruition. It's our first time doing this with no experience tapping maple trees. We had to research the history behind it, how our early settlers and our Native American neighbors first started gathering syrup, and we had to build everything from scratch through donations, through finding pieces of material lying around the building, and we were able to develop an arch, come up with the concept of how to do this, and put it to work. And one of the moments on our first day of boiling was I looked up at the elementary school and I could see the elementary school students that are facing the softball field all standing in the windows watching. So I realized at that point we had to do it again and invite them down to see it. And that's when we recruited a group of sugar makers at this point to come up with a lesson and teach it to our elementary school students. And they did a phenomenal job. At no point did I help them with their lessons, and I have no idea how many lunches they spent in my classroom researching, teaching to each other, practicing their lessons, reciting their words to the point where they had it memorized, and it was a phenomenal lesson. Just turn this on. So this is our project here. We had to gather our materials, our pancake breakfast. Tapping of the trees. This was a full 7th and 8th grade project with students from every science class out collecting syrup each day, out gathering materials, building materials, and here's a group of our students collecting, tapping. This was us boiling. This was my students here teaching the lessons.
Mr. Rizzo, and these sugar maples are on the property, is that accurate?
Yes, actually, Ms. Harris with one of her elective class has done a tree inventory around the middle school, and we found a couple dozen Norway maples that were they're an invasive species that were probably introduced back when Mr. Elting decided to leave the Huguenot settlement and come and settle in Highland, and they would plant these trees along the road for shade, and invasively they colonized the area along our stream in between Pavero and the high school. So this was us eating and cooking, serving, having a great time. And what was real nice about this was we were able to make about 3.5 gallons over the 2 days of boiling. And many of our students had never had pure maple syrup before. And to have the distinctive taste difference between store-bought corn syrup with brown sugar and food coloring versus something that you did yourself and has a real maple flavor to it. And as they'll explain, every sugar house has its own distinctive flavor. And the Highland Middle School has a very pleasant flavor with a little bit of a smoky taste to it. But it was a real treat to do this, and it's an honor for me to let them teach you about maple syrup. Go ahead, girls.
Hi, so as Mr. Rizzo said, I'm Ella Fuller.
And I'm Riley Klein. Perfect. How do we do that?
We'll just go like that.
All right.
Okay, ready?
Just like singing.
We are part of the sugar makers of maple syrup. We are part of the sugar makers at the Highland Middle School.
Throughout this process, we've learned a lot about how to make maple syrup, and it was very fulfilling. Native Americans originally established this process, and it is quite interesting. A hypothesis of how the Native Americans discovered how to make maple syrup was that in the late winter time, on the trees of maples were little, what we call sapsicles, and these are formed when branches of the maple trees are broken off and the sap drips down and freezes because it is under 32 degrees. And when the Native Americans tasted these, they knew that this was something really special, and soon they figured out how to boil it and create it into the substance that we know today. When the Native Americans introduced this process to the Europeaners when they came over from Europe, they knew that they wanted to figure out how they did this. So the Native Americans taught them all about how to find the best trees, how to make the best arches, and everything involved in this process. So now Ella will tell you a little bit about the layers of the tree.
There are 5 main layers of the tree. The outer layer is the bark, which keeps the tree protected from anything that can harm it. The second layer is the cambium. This is the part that helps the tree grow. The third layer is the sapwood, where the sap is usually stored, and that is why we drill 2 inches into the tree. The fourth layer is the heartwood, and that is where all the heart muscles are and basically the heart of the tree is. And then the fifth layer is more around of the heartwood, and that is the growth rings, or how old the tree is.
In the Highland School District around the Twosco Stream, as Mr. Rizzo mentioned, there are many Norwegian maple trees. These Norwegian maple trees are quite invasive because of the way that their leaves are arranged on the tree. They're quite broad and they span across a big area, so they create a lot of shade. This makes it so that a lot of other trees that are native to all of the East Coast can't grow properly, and because of this, that is why they are invasive. They also have a special chemical that is released from their roots that makes it so that other trees and other plants don't have a good time surviving. And because they have the ability to retain a lot of water and suck up a lot of water from the soil, that also makes it so that they are taking away vital nutrients from other plants. So because of this, they are quite common here, but you know, even though they are invasive, they do provide us with a lot of tasty maple syrup. Because the minerals that are found in these trees are different, they have a lighter, sweeter taste that some people like and some people don't. So now Ella will tell you a little bit about the collection process.
The collection process that we used at the middle school required a bucket, a spile, a drill, and a lid. The science teachers at the middle school drilled 2 inches into the tree where the sapwood is. Then they put a spile, which looks like a metal straw, into the tree so that the sap can run out. Then, of course, so that the sap doesn't run onto the ground, we put a bucket to collect the sap. And then we put a lid on top of the bucket to make sure that the sap stayed somewhat clean, even though that burning it would burn off any bacteria. Then we brought it to the 40-gallon container that we stored all the sap in that was there to begin the evaporation process. The more efficient way that most sugar makers use is that they connect all of the trees with tubing and then put it into one container so that they are ready for evaporation. At the middle school, the science teachers built an arch which was made out of cement blocks. The blocks were shaped to be able to have a chimney and a place to set trays down with the fire below them. The trays were sat on an arch, and the fire created enough heat for when we put the sap into the tray, it would evaporate off the water and just leaving the minerals and maple syrup. This process takes a long time because of the ratio of sap to maple syrup is 40 gallons approximately of sap equals 1 gallon of maple syrup, and there's 96% of water in 1 gallon of sap.
The sap
found in maple trees is made up of 96% water, 2% sugar, and 2% minerals. Maple trees tend to have more sugar, and that is also one of the reasons why we choose maple trees over other trees.
The sap heats up and the water evaporates, and then we would scoop out the foam with a ladle from the back tray, which created more heat, and we would scoop it out and just dump it right on the floor. And then we would ladle from the back tray into the front tray, where it would just boil all day, and then repeat this process, filling up the back pan and waiting until it gets to a nice color. And then when the consistency and color was right for Mr. Rizzo, we would put it into the filtration system.
In the filtration system, we were taking out all the niter, all the ash, or at least as much as we can. The niter is made up of minerals and niter. Minerals and ash from the fire. In normal processes, there wouldn't be as much of this ash because they have better systems, but our DIY system has its flaws, of course, but the maple syrup still ended up tasting very good. In the filtration process, we use these big cloth filters that we dump the syrup in 3 times to get as much out as we can. All around, maple syrup is delicious. But the reason why it has this taste is because of the minerals and bacteria that are found in it. In the sap, early in the season, the sap has less bacteria. So when we evaporate it, of course this bacteria gets killed, but the taste still remains. If, for example, you tasted Vermont maple syrup that was made in Vermont, it would taste different than our maple syrup because of the difference in minerals. There are many different kinds and scales or grades of how you measure the strength and color of the maple syrup. Darker, of course, would be found later in the season, lighter earlier in the season.
Thank you.
What an absolutely wonderful project. You two have given me such a wonderful memory. I worked for a law firm for a long time, and there was this attorney, his name was Phil Schatz, and he had a beautiful piece of property in Pleasant Valley, and every year I was invited to his maple syrup cooking down. And he's passed on now, but you brought it all back for me. Thank you. Now, before I send you all home for your homework, because I know you have a lot of homework.
Can I ask a quick question? I was fascinated. You said 3.5 gallons you made?
Yeah.
Which is roughly 140 gallons of sap you collect.
Yeah.
That's a lot of sap.
Any jokes? Any jokes for us? Yeah.
No, it was a lot of sap. It was, I'm sure Mr. Miller saw me on the cameras multiple nights with my headlamp.
Not serious. That's what, 28 5-gallon buckets?
It was great.
Wow.
Really great stuff. Okay, all right, these are a bunch of words I wrote down from all of these presentations. Successful program, able to work independently, we're anchors to our team, kind, thoughtful, dependable, high moral character, resilience, ability to work with others, polite, advocates for others, self-driven, role model, caring, works hard, friendly, good choices. Oh, it's just absolutely amazing. This tells me the parents, the caregivers, the faculty, the support staff, the administration, you all do such a wonderful job. This is so special for me, and I know the whole board. And I thank you, and I know it's time to do some homework. So feel free to, yep.
Well done.
Oh my God, look at all the people now. Chilly over here, Mr. Burrow. Oh, it's on. It's a little horrifying sometimes.
Okay? Okay. Okay, good night. Good night. Okay, for those of you who are left, this is the time for our public comment, but I just wanted to make an announcement that after several months of deep discussion and soul searching and a lot of back and forth and a lot of investigation, we have pulled the SRO off of our agenda. Right. So, any public comments? Okay. I'll close public comments. Okay. Now, okay, now comes the budget presentation for Victoria.
Thank you so much. Good evening. I'm disappointed but not shocked that the crowd didn't stay. I never draw the crowds. So this is kind of just an update. As I said last time, I don't think anybody needs to be concerned in any way. I think this is a better view of the budget this week. And so I just had to turn it on. So I want to go through and kind of let everybody know where we are. There are still some open items that is typical for this time of year. I think everybody's used to that, so let me get started. So tonight we're going to review the updated draft revenue budget and the updated expense budget and discuss the changes since our last meeting. Come on, work with me. Ooh. Okay. So at our last meeting, when we were having our revenue budget discussion, the board did agree to reduce the appropriated fund balance that is applied to offset the levy from 1.3 million to 1 million. And I think the understanding was that there would, in future years, look to be further reduction. The board also determined to utilize the debt service fund to offset the levy. And we were talking at the table last time about doing that over a 4-year period. And because we are projecting that that fund will have a balance of approximately $1.5 million, I would like to bring forward a proposal to extend that period from 4 years to 5. So I was looking at the 2 different potential schedules of using these funds, and when I looked at the 4-year schedule, I really didn't want to start that high using $450,000, but then I also didn't want to have a drop off at the end of 4 years and have to make up as much as $300,000 from that last year to the next year. So I would like to propose that we follow the 5-year plan. And so we would start by applying $400,000 and then gradually reduce that over the course of 5 years, so that that last year we would only be using $200,000. And then in the 6th year, there would be less of a drop off. And and, less impact to our budget. Does anybody have any questions about that right now? No? Oh. Okay. And so using those numbers, if we wanted to look at the draft revenue budget for next year, our state aid has actually increased by the $168,000 that we had mentioned. I had mentioned in our last meeting when we had an analysis done of our special education expenses and the aid that we can then expect to receive back. And state ed wouldn't necessarily have that level of detail, but we do pay for a service to do that analysis, and they had let us know that they believed we would be entitled to that additional bump. I didn't change the Medicaid since our last meeting or the pilot amounts because those are pretty much set, and the other revenue sources. I did plug in the $400,000 in the transfer from debt service, so that would be an increase from what was in the budget for this year. And then I did go ahead and keep the $1 million fund balance, the appropriated fund balance, which is a $300,000 reduction. And so that leads us with a total increase from last year's budget of almost $1.8 million in revenue. So then, looking at the expense side of the budget, our general support is staying essentially the same. When you look at $4.5 million, a fluctuation of $8,000 is pretty minimal. As was the case before, our largest increase is in instruction, and since we are in the business of educating kids and people are how we do that, that's pretty much to be expected. People transportation, I actually had increased that a little bit from our last meeting because, as you recall, in our last meeting we approved a budget transfer to cover additional contract transportation expenses, so I wanted to make sure that that was in the budget for next year. Employee benefits is about the same, debt service is about the same. So right now our expense budget is $49,277,622. So on the next slide, this is, whoa, okay, I think I went too far. This clicker is not liking me this evening. I had also, I'm sorry, changes since our prior meeting. I did increase the contract transportation, but also working with Dr. Boyd, we were able to have a slight reduction in the BOCES cost for special education placements based on the outcome of particular CSE meetings. But I want to be really clear that those things can continue to fluctuate, and we all know that as we go through the spring and the meetings that we are going to continue to be having. So any student who needs services will get them. That won't ever be an issue. So now, at this point, using those two budgets, the revenue budget and the expense budget, our difference is down to approximately $300,000. And, I could go to the next slide. Okay. Pretty much I could eliminate that $300,000 difference by utilizing the benefits allocation that we have in the grants for next year, and I likely will do that, but I think as we move forward, I think there will still be some fluctuations, so I feel pretty comfortable that right now we are in a really good place, and we will have to accommodate whatever happens in our future CSE meetings. We did complete our BOCES initial service request, but we're still in the process of going over that. We had a meeting with BOCES last week. I believe it was last week, and there are still some adjustments that are going to be made. So I would imagine that by the time we get to the next meeting, I may have some minor changes there as well. And the other thing that I'd like us to look at, and I think we had discussed this briefly at the last meeting, because fuel and electricity prices are really sort of abnormally high given what's happening around the world, we want to kind of watch the trends and see if what we have in budget for next year currently will accommodate that, or if we want to do a one-year increase in those budget lines that would be mirrored with an increase in the appropriated fund balance, so that we could accommodate that for 1 year, and then the next year, both of those things would be reduced. So that's something to consider. But I think as we move forward, I'll be working with Mr. Miller to kind of analyze that and review those lines. So that's something that we could look to change as we move forward. Oh, God. So as I said, we're going to continue to work closely, Dr. Boyd and I, and monitor the outcome of CSE meetings and student needs. And I will also work closely with Mr. Miller and Ms. McCulloch to come up with a recommendation in terms of the fuel and electricity costs for next year. And then obviously we'll do whatever the board is most comfortable with in terms of those. I left the 2 slides in regarding the transportation vehicle proposition that is on the agenda for the board to consider approval tonight. And so what we're looking to purchase would be one 65-passenger bus, one 24-passenger wheelchair accessible vehicle, one Suburban, and one 30-passenger bus. And that will continue the vehicle replacement that we need to in order to keep the fleet at the level that it is at right now. And I think Highland has an incredible track record in terms of fleet and safety, and it's almost unheard of to have the DOT inspection ratings that Highland experiences. So we certainly want to support continuing that safety record.
What's the aid on this again for bus? The aid we get back, percentage?
I would have to look that up. I don't want to quote you a bad number. Really? There. So I was hoping to get consensus on the plan to use the debt service fund over the course of 5 years this evening as a topic of clarification.
I like the approach. I like how, the lowering actually fits into the budget. You had that as a red item there on one of the slides, and it seems to make sense and create a softer landing coming off that expense plan. So, Victoria, I want to thank you. I really like what I see here.
Thank you.
I would agree. I support it. I think it makes sense in terms of the level that you're not dropping it off, so that in that 4th or 5th year we are trying to scrounge around. So I appreciate your insight into that.
Thank you. Does anyone else have?
I support it.
Thank you. Okay. So I thought I would get all kinds of fancy with the budget calendar and cross off the things that have happened, but there we go. So following this meeting, Lisa will have to do the first legal notice. It does not include the proposed budget amount, but it does give information about the vote, and then everything else that follows. So at the next board meeting, I'll do another update and kind of let you know where we are in terms of the BOCES costs that we expect for next year, any updates we have for special ed, and then the fuel and electricity charges. And then we still have another meeting before we need to adopt the budget. And at that April 20th meeting, we'll be looking to adopt the budget and approve the property tax report card that will then be submitted to SED and publicized. Are there any other questions that I can help with? And I will bring back the state aid number for you.
I just want to verify that because the legal notice needs to go into the paper by next week, I need to state where the public hearing is going to be. Generally, we've had it in the boardroom. I'm asking if we can make a decision. That meeting is to be held May 3rd, and if we still keep the time as 6 PM. Again, it's only because I have to put this in the legal notice for next week.
I think for the time being, I think we need to stay in this room.
Okay.
Especially because there are some small
right, I
spikes
just needed
happening
to
and we don't know
verify.
what's going to happen. So I think this is the best space for now, as long as everyone's okay with that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Victoria.
Thank you. Okay, curriculum and instruction.
Might want to praise that young man.
Is it good? Okay. Good evening, everybody. Good to see you all, especially without masks on. So only a few additions to the the principals report that I submitted at the end of last week. One of which is our building equity committee met today for our monthly meeting. We went over a number of things. One of the focus areas that we've had since the committee came into place at our building level has been the Heritage Months. So we reviewed activities that were done for Black History Month, activities that we're currently doing for Women's History Month, and then planning next month, which there's a couple things you could choose from. We're going to be focusing on Neurodiversity Awareness Month as an area that we think represents our students well. We're going to be including Deaf History Month in that, because Deaf History Month runs from mid-March to mid-April, and they may not, students who are deaf may not necessarily identify as neurodiversity, but we're trying to package as many people in as we can. And so there's been a lot of great work going on there. We've created a newsletter each month that the committee gathers resources to push out to the teaching staff and make sure that they have, the resources that they need to tackle these important topics and make sure that our students are being feeling represented and being exposed to all these different important ideas. Aside from that, we spoke to Harriet Meyer, who's been the liaison for the high school in her work as on the equity team at the district level. And she's going to be coming to the elementary school on April 19th to do a presentation similar to what she did at the high school recently, where she spoke about the New York State Culturally Responsive Sustaining Education Framework. And she had teachers go through in small groups and do an activity where they identified current practices that are in their classroom and, identified areas that they could strategize on how to include in their classroom. And so in talking to Mr. Zimmer, Harriet, and the people that experienced that, we felt like it was something we wanted to do at the elementary school, and Harriet jumped on the opportunity, so we're really looking forward to continuing that work in our building. Aside from that, I did want to take some time. I believe there was a request to share the video that I embedded in the principal's report, and that was a culmination of the PBIS committee that we put in place this year. They had the idea to create a video around BARC, which is our acronym for that PBIS initiative. And I'd like to shout out Dan Sommerfeld, Jess Cozzolino, and Casey Gallagher, who really took the reins on that. As much as I'd like to take credit for it, they really hit it out of the park. When the idea came up, we thought about, this would be a cool idea. The way that Dan put a script together for students and the way that it was filmed and edited, I think it's something we'll be able to use for a long time. So we're excited. We actually haven't done the movie premiere yet for students. The video just ended, editing last week. So we're gonna do an assembly with like 2 grade levels, over the course of a day, 2 grade levels at a time, to have students in and present or premiere this movie for them. So we're excited about that, and I think we're going to take a few minutes to watch that now. So any questions before we start that? Thank you all.
B stands for be safe. Being safe at school is very important.
The A stands for act responsibly, which is important if you want to learn and be successful.
The R stands for respect, which is important if you want to be a good person. And the K stands for kindness, which every boy and girl deserves no matter where you are. Come on, let us show you how to use these values.
The hallway is a very busy place and is often crowded. It is important to learn to spark in the hall.
Check these kids out. They're doing an amazing job of showing their homework.
When in the hallway, you should have your hands by your side and should be facing forward at all times.
You want to make a straight line. A trick for that is to be standing right behind the person in front of you. If everyone does that, the line should be perfect.
When you're driving, you stay to the right at all times.
Some kids like to spin around and touch the balls. Now that's not being very responsible.
The hallway is kind of packed sometimes, so make sure you're watching your teacher to know where to go.
Oh, and one more thing.
Never run over! Wait, where are you going? We got another topics to cover, like the bathroom. Teachers trust you to behave in the bathroom. Showing your work is a great way to keep this trust. When using the bathroom, make sure you make it quick and waste no time.
And when asking your teacher to go, make sure you actually have to go.
Always wash your hands after using the bathroom. Saying happy birthday helps me.
Toilet paper goes in the toilet and paper towels go in the trash can. If there is a problem with the toilet or sink, make sure to tell your teacher so they can call and have a custodian fix the problem.
When drying your hands, make sure you don't waste any paper towels. And make sure you actually make it in the garbage. Kids tend to forget about the bus, but it's just as important to show our mark here too. The bus moves really fast, so safety is really important. Let these boys tell you all about it.
Make sure you are always seated on the bus with your legs and feet outside of the aisle.
You also want to make sure you keep your hands to yourself while riding the bus. The bus is an easy place to get silly, but you want to make sure you're listening to your bus driver at all times.
And remember, don't leave your trash on the bus, because it's really not the bus driver's job to pick up after you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to go to school.
We gotta go now, but you should go check out the cafeteria. I bet there are some kids using their park there too. You're in the cafeteria, make sure that you're sitting in the correct area so that students are safe. The lunch monitors can know where you are at all times. Don't scream or yell. Talk loud enough so your friends can hear you, but not the whole lunchroom. No te sientes o grites. Habla duro para que tus amigos te puedan escuchar bien, pero no por tanto en la cafetería.
Because there's a lot of talking in the cafeteria, make sure to say nice things that won't hurt anyone's feelings.
Porque hay muchos hablando en la cafetería, trata de decir cosas buenas para no lastimar sus sentimientos.
When you're all done eating, make sure you clean up your mess. It's not the lunch monitor's job to clean up after you.
And make sure if you see any big spills, tell the lunch monitor.
Tira tu propia basura.
Now that you know how to bark, are you gonna do it? There's only one way to find out.
Yeah, you should have had drop the mic moment. Yeah, that's absolutely wonderful. I see a lot of student videos at BOCES, and we never seem to capture good sound. This is awesome, awesome.
Yeah, we're definitely hoping this is kind of the start of a potential feeder.
Oh, yeah.
It's had a lot of fun. I know Mr. Sommerfeld had a lot of fun. Yeah, it's a lot of work. Revising and editing his script over and over.
Oh, yeah.
He's a showman, that's for sure.
Yeah. It's great.
Awesome.
Wonderful. Any other questions? Okay, any other questions? No? No comments? Okay.
Good evening. Just a few additions. The first one is, I know Maggie is going to talk about our assembly that we had on Friday, but I also wanted to give a shout out to Mr. Davis, our school librarian, and the elementary school librarian. They worked together to have our first assembly back at the middle school and the elementary school on Friday, which was awesome. So I just want to give a shout out to them, and Maggie will give some more information about that a little bit later. The second thing I wanted to talk about, that's not in my board report, but the 6th grade is going to be doing a walkathon on April 22nd to raise money for the refugees of Ukraine. So I'm going to give you a flyer, and we will be doing some more information in in my updated board report for next month and some stuff on social media soon. But I wanted to also give you the flyer. If you have questions, you want to donate, whatever it might be, you can always just contact me, and I can give that to Ms. Curlis, the grade level coordinator for the 6th grade. So I'm going to pass that. And the last thing is, I know there were some questions about digital citizenship for our 6th and 8th grade. I know Mrs. Potash gave some examples, but just a few more examples I wanted to add is that Mr. Banks is using a program, the Hudson Valley Federal Credit Union program, but he's also using another program called Be Internet Awesome. And these lessons are broken into 4 different topics, which is share what you care, don't fall for fake, secure your secrets, and it's cool to be kind, which really goes into the whole idea of password safety, which I know is really big right now everywhere, especially for adults as well. So he's really focusing in on that with students in 8th grade as they move through high school and as they're really starting to have bank accounts and different passwords that they would need. So he's really honing in on those skills. And Mrs. Path is using Common Sense Media, which is a digital passport and digital compass gaming platform, which talks about all internet safety, but does it through gaming. So they do topics, they intertwine them through her lessons, and then at the end, they play a game to kind of make sure and reinforce everything that they're doing and learning. So for example, some of those topics would be digital health concepts such as emotional intelligence, digital dependency, which is huge for middle school, online privacy and evaluating content for accuracy, which is also really big as they're learning to research projects and kind of determining when you're looking at a website, is it accurate and is it legitimate information that you're getting? So that's just a little bit more to add to what Ms. Potash gave you.
No questions?
Great,
Thank you, Megan.
Thanks, Megan.
Okay.
Good evening again, everyone. Mr. Darling, it's hilarious to watch that video because then I get to see the little ones and try to guess who their older siblings are here at the high school. So it's always a treat. On behalf of Mrs. Zimmer, I'm just here to give the principal's report for the high school. A couple of additions, a plug for the upcoming school play on April 1st and April 2nd at 7 p.m., Freaky Friday. The scholarship concert that took place over the last couple of weeks was a huge success. Very well attended. Students did an outstanding job. Performances were great. And lastly, last weekend, members of the high school music department attended the All-County Music Festival for Ulster County. We had 5 students represent the choir and 7 students represent the jazz band, of which for the 7 students in the jazz band, they made up a quarter of the county-wide jazz band. So it was nice to have a real strong Husky presence representing, our awesome little town. And those are the only additions I have for the high school report. Any questions?
Your jazz band is wonderful. I love it.
And I
Kids are really good.
I spoke to Mr. Zimmer about the students that were at those music programs, so we'd like to recognize them at a future board meeting. I know
Absolutely.
we couldn't do it this evening, but maybe at the second one in April.
Absolutely, yeah, 12 students in total. We'll get you those names.
Thanks.
Yep. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, Director's Monthly Report. So anyone have any questions or comments in regard to any of the directors' reports?
I just have one for Frank. This one for spring sports. Are we all the coaches are all set?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
All the coaches for the sports for spring season, are we all set?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Kathy?
I just want to answer your question from before, if that's okay. So you had asked state aid every year for each bus. Every year it varies. So I have not supplied Victoria with that information yet, and I'll tell you why. Every year it is required for us to do that between March, April, and May. And there's a formula we have to follow. How many buses, how many students, and how many miles in the 1.5 miles. So we take all that information that the drivers give us from this week, and we compile it and give Victoria those numbers and that information. So I hope that answers your question.
Yep, so it's how many buses, how many students?
How many students, and then the mileage is the 1.5 miles that we get credit for, we get state aid for.
Oh, geez.
So they need all that information, as well as
Okay.
Victoria,
Okay.
from me, before they can give you that answer.
So we'll get that next meeting, or just?
Yeah, it's usually like a percentage. I know it's
Yeah.
usually it's one of our highest aid categories,
Yeah,
like
that's why we're always-
70%
yeah.
or something
Right, so
like
that's
that.
why it's so beneficial for school districts to have their own buses. They get state aid for every bus. Just trying to throw that in
Yep.
there. Okay? Thank you for listening.
I just have a quick question for Maria. In your update, you noted a reduction to the entitlement money. Is that just based on what we used last year, which affects this year's number, or how is that determined? Okay. Right. Okay, so that's preliminarily the effect. Okay. Okay, so in a few years, we should be in good shape? Thank you.
Karen, I want to thank you for all of your detailed reports in regard to the winter scoring. Camille, thank you so much for your in-depth questions. And to the principals, thank you also so much for your in-depth answers. You go into it nice and deep, and it shows we have some work to do, but I know with this team here, we're going to get there.
Backtracking for just a second, Maria, I wanted to share with you, I was actually approached by a parent this week who said the one thing they're going to miss about the pandemic was all the wonderful food that was being sent to the house. So,
We really enjoyed meeting all the parents, seeing the kids. Unfortunately, we can't do that, but
Any other questions? Okay, next up is consent agenda. Does anyone have anything to pull out of the consent agenda? I do, and it's what I brought up with you the other day in regard to the stale dated checks. I just want to make sure that, because at least in my career, you're not allowed to put stale dated checks back into your account. It has to be turned into abandoned property.
So I did a little research on the comptroller's website, and public education is not listed as one of the industries that are governed by the abandoned property law. I did also send an email inquiry to them, and I have not heard back, just to confirm. But our auditors did not suggest that we do that, so I kind of felt like that was an indication that maybe we are not covered, because there are very industry-specific guidelines, and having been in banking, I understand abandoned property from that perspective, but if you look on their website, education is not one of the industries.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable with that.
That's fine.
Because we have specific payees, and one of them, I see that it was an estate, the estate of, and it's not our money, or it's not, and I'm hesitant to have it flow back into our coffers. But
Yeah,
I'll go with the will of the board.
Sue, I'm with you, actually. When I read that, I thought twice about that as well, because that has never been the practice of what I've seen either. It's always been that you stale date them and then remit them up to the state, but maybe it's different for education, I'm not sure.
That's fine. I can wait to get more additional, I sent that email off to the compliance arm of the OSC website, so.
Yep, thank you, Heather, for, okay, so we'll table that? Okay. Anyone else have any items to pull out? Okay, so we are going to go for 7A through D1. Thank you, Joel. May I have a motion? Okay, all in favor? Yep.
Second.
Heather and Camille.
Okay, student rep?
If we could just acknowledge Chris Austerman is with us this evening. We don't often have someone who is going to do a leave replacement with us, but Chris is going to do that leave replacement at the high school. So just want to acknowledge Chris, and everyone can, I saw you saw his face before, but we do want to acknowledge that he's here. Thanks, Chris.
Good luck, Coach.
Okay.
All right. Hello, everyone. So for the elementary school, I have that members of the Diversity, Inclusion, and Racial Equality Committee took turns reading over the loudspeaker weekly tales to encourage and celebrate Women's History Month. This is a great way to involve elementary school students in Women's History Month. For the middle school, like Ms. Coburn mentioned, they had their first assembly since COVID, and of course, more importantly, the speaker brought dogs. So that was something that everyone remembered. And sports have started for both modified, JV, and varsity, and most games and matches should be starting next week, so that's very exciting for everyone. A couple teachers at the high school were wondering when our snow day give back days are, and they asked me to ask you all. So,
Two more speakers.
Okay.
And you'll find out.
Got it. And then finally, the senior trip is starting on Thursday to go to Disney. And on that note, I have to go pack. So, as long as no one has questions, I hope you all have a great night. And I have to go back because I procrastinated. But any questions?
Have a great trip.
Thank you.
Full time.
Bring
Okay,
bring some of the warmth and sunshine back for us, if you don't mind.
Yes, please. Yes. Okay, Assistant Super.
Hello. Good evening, everyone. As you will hear me say at most meetings, and I'll echo it again tonight, a big thank you to everybody throughout the district as we, what we'll call annual review season, requires a lot of planning and a lot of implementation and a lot of flexibility. Using spaces for teachers to Zoom into meetings is challenging at times, so thank you to building administration, support staff, everybody for working together to make sure that those meetings are held in a professional manner. We have, I believe, as of the March 16th, we had 96 annual reviews so far. In that last stretch, we had 109 meetings. So coordinating all of those, Ms. Bezat in my office is at the center of that. So kudos to her of keeping track of that and all the work she does in putting out notification reminders, emails, links to parents to do our best to try to get participation as much as possible, which has been great. So again, thank you to everybody there. One thing I did want to mention, yesterday was World Down Syndrome Day, so there was a push for lots of socks, which is for individuals to wear crazy socks yesterday and to show them off and to be proud of it as awareness for Down Syndrome Day. Mr. Freer will say I wear crazy socks every day, but I made sure to wear them yesterday, and thanks for all the folks for participating.
For me.
But that's part of almost like a kickoff for one of our initiatives for Special Ed Cabinet. One of the big projects we had been working on was our Special Education Handbook, which we were able to finalize and we've been utilizing this year. The next piece is looking at disability awareness. We've increased the diversity in our classroom libraries in a lot of areas, and one of the areas I would like to improve upon is disability awareness. And we're hoping that this dovetails very nicely with Mr. Darling at the elementary school, specifically with Neurodiversity Month. But we've ordered a bunch of texts. They haven't come in yet. So the idea would be to increase our classroom libraries with some text focused around this, and then our special ed cabinet to develop some lessons age appropriate and how we utilize those texts to bring some more focus to this. A lot of the texts are surrounded about celebrating differences. So it's a really great message that can be put K through 12 and can be used at different text levels. So that's going to be one of our push that we are working on over the next couple of months of improving that. Other than that, I did attach some extra information for you. That's just for informative purposes for Ulster County. Every couple of months, we all share what our support staff and special education staff looks like as we look at the supports we provide. So that was just an FYI that I included.
Any questions? Joel?
Okay, well, Maggie, you're not here for your answer, but I was going to start with snow days so that you could go home. So, gentlemen, I don't know if you have her cell phone, but maybe you can text her this information and I'll send her an email tonight. So we have 2 snow days left in the calendar. Our plan is that if we do not use any of those 2 before the upcoming spring break, we will return one of them to the calendar on Monday after Easter, and then save that last one for if something were to occur between April 18th and the end of May, and we would return the second one on May 27th. So I will be getting something out to the families this week with that all outlined. So as long as we don't have any need for one between now and spring break, we will return one on April 18th and one on May 27th. I did not hear Maggie mention it, and I know the board, I've been mentioning it each week in my Friday updates, but the Highland High School PTSA is having their first annual Brooks Brothers, not Brooks Brothers, that's a suit company, Brooks House Barbecue. If you have not gotten a flyer, please see any of the offices or send an email to the high school or to myself, and I can get you a copy of that flyer, and to support our PTSA. It is my birthday, so I will be having pulled pork. No, actually, no, it's barbecue chicken, so I don't get an option. So good luck to the PTSA on their fundraiser. I want to echo what Mr. Murphy mentioned earlier. Our scholarship concerts were heavily attended. Great turnout. The music was wonderful. There were lots of happy faces that you could see, and a lot of happy faces that still stayed behind their masks, and everyone is treating everyone respectfully. So thank you to our community for supporting our music concerts. We do not have a total on the amount of money that was raised for the Music Scholarships. I had hoped to have that by this evening, but I will have that for you for the Friday update, and then I'll report it at the April 5th meeting. Earlier today, I sent an email out to the community. We have so many COVID at-home antigen tests that we are worried that they're going to expire before we give them out. So I sent cases to each of the buildings today. Thanks to the security personnel in each building, they're going to have them in the vestibules at the schools. So any parents that want to stop during school hours, they can just pull up to the front door and get them from our security folks. We handed out at the scholarship concerts about 2,000 of them over the course of the 2 evenings. You know, if you remember when these tests first came out, we had a hard time getting them, but I'm now worried that they're gonna expire before they can be used up. So when people were coming to the concerts, we were handing them 6 and 7 of these tests at a time. And with that in mind, there is a slight uptick in the region. So, you know, people feel free to use up those tests and come see us to get more. Please do not buy them at CVS or Walgreens. Please use up the ones that we have. They're the same tests, and they are $25 at the store, and we have plenty to supply the community. So spread the word on that. I did send an email to the state to see if I could donate some to like churches and things, and then I have not gotten a response back from that. My guess is they're not going to allow me to do that, but if people want to pick up extras and take them to their friends or family, I have no issue with that. I know we already talked about Freaky Friday on April 1st and 2nd. I think it's funny that Freaky Friday is going to happen on Friday, April 1st. I hope it's not a joke. I saw the kids practicing. It should be an incredible performance. Just a reminder that April 23rd at Novella's, we will have our annual Ed Foundation dinner, and we will be recognizing 2 Highland alumni as our Husky alumni recipients, Lenny Auchmoody and our very own Mr. Miller, who's with us this evening. Congratulations, Mr. Miller. And our Husky Pride Award winner this year is for former world language teacher Patty Steffens, who actually still works for the district in some capacity, helping to do translation services. So congratulations to Patty as well. We have our March direct meeting coming up on Tuesday of next week. If any of the board members are interested and you aren't on that list, we can get you a link. Harriet will be more than happy to give that to you. We have our Superintendent's Conference Day coming up this Friday, and as you know, we are currently down an Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum Instruction, so I want to just shout out to all of my directors and principals for all of the work that you've done to make this Friday a success for our buildings. I already know it's going to be a success. I've talked to each of the building principals about the plans that they have. This was a day that we thought we were going to plan in other ways, but we've been working for the last 6 weeks or so, and each building is going to do some different work in all of the initiative areas that we have been working on for the last year, and we'll give you a full rundown. They will be giving me their agendas this week, so I will include those in my Friday update. Next week starts New York State assessments. March 29th and 30th will be ELA in grades 3 through 8. And then 1 month from then will be the math New York State assessment on April 26th and 27th. We do have, as you know, we have a student at the high school that does have a debilitating disease that he is fighting right now and just went through some difficult surgeries. His mom has reached out and asked us to host a blood drive. So we will be doing that on Saturday, April 14th. It will be an all-day blood drive, and there will be information coming out for that. I know Mr. Murphy has been involved in that as well, so thank you for that. And then looking ahead to May 6th, which would be our next Superintendent's Conference Day, that is also our kindergarten screening at the elementary school, and it will also be at least part of the day will be technology-based. NICEGate, which is the state organization, applied for a grant, and Hudson Valley schools and Capital Region schools have been afforded the opportunity to participate in one, or as many actually as they would like, through the end, I believe, September of 2022, webinars that are technology-based on a multitude of of topics. So we are going to ask that each of our staff members participate in a minimum of one for that day. The minimum number of hours is 3 hours, so some of them are a little longer, but most of them are 3 and up. So for our teachers and our teaching assistants, those would be good opportunities for them to get CTLE hours. We've been talking about that for a number of years now, and so we just got that information like a few days ago, and I'll get you an update of, we're going to get a printout of all of the workshops that are available, but that will be one of the focuses on May 6th. And I think that's all that I have.
In regard to the testing that's coming up, are you receiving requests for opt-outs yet, or too early?
We talked last week, and there were not too many, so I did not check with them today because I was preoccupied with some other things. I'm hoping that that number is not ticking up. I have personally seen some social media posts encouraging folks to continue, no, not what you think, to continue the opt-out. But I think the number is, at least last week it was lower. Yes, Megan's shaking her head, Matt's shaking his head. So that's a nice thing to see. You know, the one thing that I would say about that, and you know, we all have our opinions about those tests, but as we're coming out of this pandemic, I think it is important for us to get a baseline of where the students are, because it will help to guide some of our direction in the future. Not that we are internal, I mean, we obviously, we do our internal things as well, but it would be nice to see how we are rated against others. So I know principals have had conversations with parents, and you know, we'll continue to do so.
Questions? No? Okay. Next, new business. Anyone have any new business? I do have new business, and I would like to ask my colleagues if we could consider BOCES coming to the board for a presentation on the P-TECH program. P-TECH program, and you can embellish if you need to, Megan or Patrick. It's a 4-year program. It's geared for students who may not necessarily fit into the regular school atmosphere. I think it's mainly project-based learning. It's a 4-year student commitment. I found out from 5.
It's a 6-year.
6 years.
It's a 6-year commitment.
But
yeah.
it starts what grade?
9th grade.
9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. But
so they leave there with an associate's degree,
yes,
and a high school degree. So that's
yes,
the extra 2 years.
Okay, I thought they attained it in a 4-year, so it's 5-year. So it's but
6. Yeah.
The normal time for an associate's, but it's done through the P-TECH program.
Okay, I'll double check that. Okay. Anyway, I have been to some graduation ceremonies as well as presentations at BOCES, and the kids absolutely thrive. We currently have 3 Highland students in this program, and it is just simply amazing. After the graduation or the year-end presentation, the kids wanted to talk to me, to tell me about themselves and what their passion was. And it was just, usually you don't have kids coming up to you that want to talk to you about what they're doing, and they are so supportive. It is such a wonderful atmosphere for kids who may not necessarily fit in the regular school environment. Thank you. And I was wondering if you would be willing to have BOCES come and just a presentation of the P-TECH program.
I would love to see them here. I'd love to see some of our students if they'd like to present what they're working on as well.
Yeah, maybe the 3 students that do. That's a great idea. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, if this is an opportunity that our students have, and we want to raise awareness and showcase it a little bit, no problem.
Okay, thank you all. Okay, old business. So are we ready to move on the bus proposition? Okay. All right. Be it resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, approves the following proposition to be placed on the ballot at the annual meeting of the qualified voters of the Highland Central School District to be conducted on Tuesday, May 17th, 2022. Shall the Board of Education of the Highlands Central School District be authorized to, 1, acquire one 65-passenger school bus, one 30-passenger school bus, one wheelchair-accessible vehicle, and one four-wheel drive transportation vehicle at a maximum cost of approximately $322,000. 2, expend such sum for such purpose. 3, levy the necessary tax therefore to be levied and collected in annual installment in such years and in such amount as may be determined by the Board of Education, taking into account state aid. And 4, in anticipation of collection of such tax, issue bonds and notes of the district at one time or from time to time in principal amount not to exceed $322,000, and levy a tax to pay the interest on said obligations when due. Be it further resolved that the district clerk is hereby directed to include notice of such proposition in the notice of the annual meeting. Be it further resolved that this resolution take effect immediately upon its adoption. May I have a motion? Ed and Camille. Okay? We have to do a roll call.
Okay, so just say yes or no after I say your name. Camille?
Yes.
Mike Bakaxias?
Yes.
Alan Barone? Yes. Ed Mizell?
Yes.
Heather Welch?
Yes.
Sue Gilmore?
Yes.
Okay, that's all in favor, 6-0. Thank you.
Okay. The next item, old business, microphone system for Board of Education meetings discussion. Alan?
No, I think we've been talking about trying to update our microphone system for quite some time now, and I would like to move forward with doing that. We know that the microphones around the table are of various quality, and there's certainly some better systems out there, so I don't see why we wouldn't pursue updating the system.
No, I agree with Mike. I agree with Mike. If we're going to continue having our meetings in this setting or in the auditorium, I think it would be very beneficial to our meetings. If we're going to go back to E32, the smaller confines, it might not be warranted to utilize those in a small setting. But if we're going to continue to have our meetings here, I would have the solution. I think it'd be beneficial for...
Turn it on. There you go, now it's on, yeah, all right.
Beneficial, it's the same.
Yeah.
You're just trying to prove your point.
Definitely need the mic.
And preferably because I am familiar with some of these things, and I know an agency that purchased conference mics with the button right here. We want the button right here where you could turn it off and turn it on.
I was just going to say.
And not these switches, because they get old, and some of them aren't working, but they're, absolutely. And even if we can hear each other in this venue, it absolutely helps with those watching at home, whether it's tonight, next week, 1 month, whatever it is. The quality has to be there.
I think if we can use a conference mic like you mentioned, there's some wonderful system. Yes, well, a conference mic system like you mentioned, Michael, I think would be wonderful, and especially if something we could use that could be integrated by other programs like the Model UN. We have programs that could very much use a system like that could be utilized in the auditorium for settings where meetings are held. I think cross-purpose, it would be a good investment.
Right. I'm not going to say it's got to be wired or wireless. Wireless also comes with its challenges, but a quality wired system would work just fine.
Yeah, as long as we're able to use it for other purposes, like Ed said, then I would be in support of the expense. But if we're just, we're going to use it for board meetings twice a month, we should just consider the cost of that.
One of the things that I have been speaking to with the person
who does the sound in this system is to outfit all of the areas with speakers, built in so that it's easier. You just come in, you plug your mic into the wall, we would do it, and the speakers will be mounted in all of the areas. I think that's another issue that we have in here is the sound bouncing around. So that's one reason why some of the cost is maybe a little higher than you might expect, because when I put it out to Pro Sound, who's done all of our sound, that was one of my stipulations, is that we want it to work. We were looking at the wireless ones, we were looking at the best ones, because some of them are a little outdated. And when you build those systems, you're building a network with the products that come rolling into the room. So we want it to be easy, we want it to work, we want it to, pick the camera to pick it up. We've looked at some live streaming things that we have pretty much ready. So I think it all works. I mean, it's just...
Right, the board system should probably be one that can be transported, because there are times that we move our meetings to other buildings.
Right.
But if you have a plan for each of your facilities to have a system, that's on the school side of the pie. We're talking about for board.
Yep. We put some sound systems into the other buildings and some of the grants that are easy just to mount, but always the people, when I put it out there to people, they have to know that this wireless system is going to plug in those rooms, in those environments as well. Just for you guys, yep. It's a good idea.
And so even that soundboard could plug into one of those systems and work, right, with an XLR
It could.
cord.
It could if they design it right, and if the wireless system, that board is just all done on a laptop.
So that could patch in. Yes, we can. So that system could patch into the auditorium as well.
Sure, because if it's wireless and it's built
Right.
into a little cabinet and everything wheels around with those microphones, it would patch in everywhere. In this environment and the other cafeterias, we'd put a little wall plate in the wall that would attach either that board or the wireless system to the speakers that are hanging there. So it would be easy.
This is a go.
I will work on that tomorrow. Thank you.
Capital project updates?
Okay, so capital project updates, I mentioned it in my update for the week. I gave you an updated consolidated report. It was similar to the week prior. We had noticed that in the concession stand, it was $23,000 higher than it should have been due to a formula error when we're moving this information around so quickly that it needs some extra time to make sure that all the formulas are right. So when we did that, we noticed a $23,000 error. We corrected that amount, and I believe you have copies of that out on the table? All right, so what you should have is what we consolidated it from last time. We took all those extra lines out with the built-in extra costs. And then we also have for you, we sent this all to Bernard Donegan's office so that they could cost out and show you where we were with the project. Now, the one thing, Victoria, we were talking about is we were staying with scope at 15.5, but that did not account for the DASNY fees and construction incidental costs and the capital interest expense. So I believe that was 16.96. Remember when we talked about this in the beginning, we wanted to keep our Proposition 1 at the 15.5, and then that second discussion about adding that second proposition, and if you take a look at the Bernard Donegan document, and we apologize that you didn't get this sooner than this evening, but we literally just got it like late last night. So, Victoria, what page am I sending them to?
If you go to the back and then back up a few pages.
See. Oh, it got cut off.
If you look at
here we go.
B1.
So the one thing that was questioned is what was unaidable, and out of the entire project of Prop 1 and 2 together, $2.5 million is not aidable. So that would be the portion of the secondary school that did not fit into the cost allowances, the press box, and Victoria, this got cut off when this got printed.
I see that. If you look at the very last page, at the junior, senior high school, the amount above the cost allowance is $936,000.
Right.
And then also the press box is essentially entirely unaidable. And then the incidentals, there would be a portion of that that is also unaidable. So the total in the bottom right-hand corner is the 2.5 million. But that
see that.
includes the concession stand, the press box, the track and turf. That's sort of all in.
So is there some work that's needed on the option 1 to get it below the 15 mil?
I think we just wanted to point out, because the Bernie Donegan's office, when I sent him the revised file and said, you know, we're looking to approve the 15.5, even though we have identified scope a little bit below that so that we have some leeway, they reached out and said, now remember, when we came and presented to the board, we said the scope would be 15.5, but the total proposition would be 16.96, because that includes the DASNY fees and the interest expense. And I went, oh, right, you did say that. So we wanted to be very, very transparent and remind everybody that's, you know, we stuck in our head the 15.5 number because that was the scope.
Right. So you came in close, but if we lowered it, does that also decrease those fees to fall in within the allowable amount?
It could.
Depending on what you're lowering
What
it
you're lowering.
by.
Is that advisable?
That's really a board decision, what you want to bring forward.
We lowered it to have what we call those alternates, so
Correct.
we don't, when it goes out to bid, that we don't fall below what our anticipated budget line items, so we have a little cushion there to be able to include everything that we're talking about. Previous projects, we maxed out, and we didn't have the funds that were allocated through the voters to finish the entire project. That's why we're building it a little lower, so we have that cushion, because we don't know what the building climate's going to be when this goes out to bid.
But cushion sounds like you're coming up to an amount, but when you take that amount plus all these additional fees, what's the total?
So the total that the voters would approve would be the 16.96 plus the additional proposition.
That's different.
That's a separate proposition.
So just to be clear, the 16.96 and the additional proposition equals 20 million something.
Right.
That's where we're,
We have
0.5 million
2.5.
of that is unaidable.
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay.
But if
We
said
kept
that-
talking 15.5 because we were trying to keep the scope within the 15.5, knowing that the DASNY fees and the incidental fees were on top of that. When they presented 16.9, but we knew we had to keep our scope at 15.5 or less.
Right.
So we've been
and
saying
all of that
15.5 a
still,
lot.
and all of that still fits within the even path.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes.
That's fine. Thank you.
We weren't presenting this as a problem, just as a reminder.
Right. There's some fees on top, and I'm just, that portion is supposed to be little or no impact to the taxpayer.
Correct.
And we still can categorize
Correct.
it like that.
Yes.
Thank you. Well, yeah, I mean, just so public record and those watching, option 2 is at option, I don't know if it's option 2 or 3. Which one's the transportation option? Would that be 3?
No, because
on the
the
budget,
transportation is going to be voted on at the budget in May. So this will be Prop 1 and
Right.
Prop 2 because this will be next fall.
October, correct.
It does get confusing this time of year when we're talking about all the different.
Right, so Prop 2 for the capital project is estimated at this time at $4.4 million. That is an athletic complex, turf field, track, concession stand, basically, trying to achieve that vision that was brought to us by the community.
Correct. Bathrooms as well, yeah.
And that appears on page 5 of this document.
And will that get posted as an artifact as of tonight's meeting, or no?
Yeah.
I see we handed it out. So.
This was designed and intended to be for public consumption just prior, until our BOCES contact Holly Brooker does her wonderful materials, which I'm sure will be much better than what we've created.
Will there be anything regarding the fall capital project in the budget newsletter that's going out?
She's going to mention it, that we are working on that, but that's not going to be the focus of the newsletter.
Yeah, she knows how to do it.
Yep.
All right.
Right.
We've had that conversation, so there's going to be a section for that. Not a large one, but yes.
Yeah, as I've spoken in previous meetings, I am, I'm very, very hesitant going up to the ceiling. And I pulled out the February 1st worksheet that you gave us. And I took a look at the BOCES project 5-year cash and 5-year financed. And I see what that's going to do for, the tax implication to the taxpayers. I've got a question for you. Right now, as it stands right now, do you feel we have the cash flow to pay this off in 5 years?
No.
No.
We don't. So you feel that the only option we will have for the BOCES project is to go out to 20 years?
I think that would be the least impactful in a negative way for the taxpayers.
Okay. All right. Because what I was thinking, and I know I'm a lonely little person here.
No, that's not true. I like potentially paying off things early.
I like to pay things off up front, too.
I'm wondering if the board would entertain, right now, a $10 million base project, plus the athletic complex. Would we then, if we do, would we then be able to pay this off in 5 years, the BOCES $3 million? If we go...
That would have to be a Bernie Donegan analysis. That's not something that I could tell you.
I would like to know if that's feasible, because then I'm thinking, all right, we've got this paid off in 5 years.
I don't see how the items we identified in the main project, outside of, to include, and this is just my opinion, but to include the turf project and the athletic field, and to eliminate and yet eliminate things from the other portion.
But we won't.
But you're saying reduce to 10?
Yeah, let me finish.
Okay, please, I'm sorry.
Okay, so that 5 years is over. Then we go for the remaining $5 million.
But
after the BOCES is paid for.
Well, that would be the time to go for the turf field, in my opinion, because these other items are infrastructure that directly impact the day-to-day life of the children.
I'm not necessarily in favor of putting off the turf field. But it's just...
So just so I'm clear, so you're looking to reduce the scope on, let's say, let's call it the $15.5 million route, down to $10 million. Include the base of the BOCES project in there, and then pay that whole thing off in 5 years?
Yeah.
$14 million?
No. Just the BOCES.
Just the BOCES.
And then go out for the remaining $5 million bucks on our base project.
What aid are we getting on the BOCES project?
It's
Is it
Yeah.
equivalent to our?
It's
No,
similar, but
it's
it's not
less.
as much.
It's less.
Because remember, in order to accommodate the BOCES project within ours, we were going to have to reduce our scope from 15 to 11.
So then go out in 5 years for the balance of the 5 million?
Yes.
With no capital reserve to offset that, so that becomes a burden on the taxpayers?
No, it should be tax neutral.
How?
It should be.
We're using that money now
Right.
to make this current project tax neutral. In 5 years, our capital reserve expired, it already sunsetted, so we can't use any of that money to offset the 5 million. So I think it'll be a burden on the taxpayers at that point.
May not. Could
Well,
we?
we
yeah.
can't, I mean, I don't have a crystal
Yeah.
ball and say it may not,
Yeah.
but.
Yeah. But it's just,
Bernie, again, spin it up and.
I would just like to see if it would be possible, because I would love to see the BOCES paid off in 5 years.
Just if I could speak up, I'm always in favor of paying debt earlier rather than later, but in this case, I don't want to put off improvements for our schools for 5 years for our students, because BOCES has decided to do a project on their side. But I am in favor of keeping the project the way we have it right now and moving forward.
Yep. Their kids are our kids.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And as well, BOCES has not had a capital project since they built the building, and that's amazing to me.
Yeah,
Amazing. You're talking 40 years.
I completely take all that into account, and I appreciate that and can appreciate also what our buildings need and what our students need today, so.
Yeah, I echo what Heather stated.
Okay, it's just I want to be able to lessen the tax impact on the taxpayer and also not risk this failing because of the economic times.
I hear what you're saying, Sue. And yes, BOCES students are our students, but if we all recall the BOCES capital project, it's infrastructure upgrades that they did not take care of over the years. And you just said it, 40 years. There's no new expansion to their facilities to improve, student enrollment or whatever. It's basically upgrading their infrastructure that, I hate to say it, but maybe neglected over the last 40 years. And now you're asking us to share the burden of that and reduce our scope that's here for our community to support the BOCES project and pay it off in 5 years.
I'm not saying reduce it. I'm saying just hold it for 5 years to make it easier for the taxpayers. Because it's really not, it's,
I guess, Bernie Donegan could unless we use,
They'll know the numbers, but they're not going to recognize it.
But we don't know in 5 years what's going to happen in 5 years. We were, up to, 2 months ago, we were in the war. So to say 5 years from now, we're going to be in this state where the economy is great and we're going to have all this money, and who's to say the work that we're doing now, we put that off, it's going to probably cost us more down the road. So I think it's our district right now. We need to take care of it like we said we were.
And also, if we vote in 5 years, just to put it in the right frame, if we vote in 5 years, then the work will not be completed for,
A couple years after that.
right. It'll take another year before it's approved by state ed and bid out, and so it really is delaying the work here.
If we could just still look at the figures and, I respect, I know I'm in the minority here. It's just, I'm concerned about the taxpayers, the weight that's on the taxpayers.
I understand that, Sue, but if you go back to our early discussion when in the infancy of the project, I think our overall scope was at $35 million, so there is still work out there that we have to do to our facilities. I mean, we're looking at this parking lot out here. That's on the scope, it's been on the scope for the last several projects. So I don't think, you can isolate that next project at $5 million just to recoup what we're not doing now. There's going to be
more money added to that.
Right, but
in
there's
5 years from now.
there's
So-
other debt that will be coming, that will be paid off as well.
Now, for 7 years, was it 7 or 8 years?
Yep. It doesn't hurt to look at it.
If that's the will of the board, I think the hour, just as a note, the hourly rate for Bernie Donigan is about $250.
Yep, that's.
So I think in, was it January?
I think it
Joe,
was
we spent
January when we costed out
$6,000.
the 4 projects, it was to the tune of $6,000.
I mean, if the majority of the board is not in favor of that, why waste the money? We're talking about saving money, and now we're spending more money for something that we're not going to use, so it just...
All right, I tried. Okay.
You want to roll call it? Because I'm always interested in information, whether we act on it or not. So I would, whatever the rates are, I would have Bernie
Are we going to get a clear picture of it, though? As we mentioned, after the 5 years, what aid we can still get, what we can fund. I think there's been some weaknesses in this approach that have already been pointed out.
There's 2 in support. If that's where it stands, then it just ends as a discussion item. If nobody else wants to look at it.
You say
1,
that,
2,
but
3, 4.
we've had this discussion for the last 5 meetings.
Okay,
and it
so
always
let's roll
circles
call it.
back.
I'll roll call it. All right, Camille, the state, yes or no?
In favor,
Do I say your name?
in favor of...
Just repeat what we're
Yeah.
roll calling.
To direct Bernie Donigan to look at a particular scenario identified in this evening's meeting.
So, just so we're clear, we're going to reduce the scope of this current project, but still offset it with the entire amount of our capital reserve, or are we going to do something different? I mean, my roll call, I don't know what the question is, so, go ahead.
I was going to say it's to present it to Donigans in terms of researching it.
I'm sure he's going to come back with a ton of questions.
Yeah, the question's going to be, what is it exactly
What is
that
it
he's researching? And we don't want him going in circles. So if we can spell out exactly what it is that we
we're
want him to
not.
do.
When the time comes, Ms. Gilmore and Victoria and Bernie Donigan will have a conference call
Great idea.
and move forward, or at that point, they'll say, yeah, no. Right? I mean...
Let's roll call it and see if we're in favor of doing that, and then that conference call can happen if we're in favor of it.
It may not happen.
I'm going to go back and paraphrase a comment that was made at our last meeting, that I will support the recommendation of the support service. The support service came back and condensed, gave you a document that was clear. Now we're going to circumvent the support services meeting. And I want to thank Frank Alfonso, because we invited him in to give us some insight into the athletic piece of it.
And he was so happy to be in there.
And the concession stand, and to Mr. Miller, who's put a lot of time into this. So we are now going to circumvent what the support service brought to the table from our March 11th.
Let's just take a roll call instead of, yeah.
Okay, so we'll just take a roll call. Okay. So just say yes or no. Camille Adoma?
Negative.
Say
No, no.
Thank you. Mike Bakaxias?
Yes.
Alan Barone?
No.
Ed Mizell?
No.
Heather Welch?
I am not in favor.
Sue Gilmore?
Yes. Okay, there.
So that's 2 noes, 4 yeses. I'm sorry, 4 noes, 2 yeses.
Is this topic officially put to bed now? Are we?
Democracy in action, nothing more exciting.
That's exactly right.
That's what makes this country great.
Can I, and just, we've been revisiting this topic about the scope for a few meetings, as Ed said, and then we talked about timeline, so we keep on coming back to this point. We're not going to meet our timeline of getting this vote out.
Can you speak
by
a little
October.
bit closer?
Oh, sorry.
I'm
So I just said that we just got to commit to, we voted before on this, and then we're coming back to it again in a different version. We're not going to meet our timeline if we keep on doing this. So I just we've got to be conscious of what we're trying to do, and we want to put out a good project to the community. So we agree on something, we just need to, the vote goes in the favor, we move forward and put together this project.
Right. Okay.
I have a couple items under old business.
So could I just, for clarity, are we settled? Or are we, to Camille's point, there's nothing more that the support services or Victoria and I and Patrick are getting together? Are we ready to move forward? Do we need an official motion to do that? Or does that happen at the April 5th meeting?
Can. But, I mean, I think you do need a resolution to move it forward.
So if everyone's okay, I can get the resolution set for the April 5th meeting.
Sounds good.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
And I just want to take a minute just to thank the Support Services Committee for all the time that they've put in, all the administration, for all the input that they've put in as well. I think this is going to be a great project, and I appreciate all the time and effort.
So just a couple items under other. I didn't want to ask it tonight, but in the April report from our principals, if you can include, or whether it's written or it's oral, I'd like to hear some of the end of the year activities and celebrations that you're going to be having in your buildings as we have now returned, for the most part, back to normal. So that would be in April. And then for the board, I did forward a email to each of you, and it talks about high leverage tutoring. Just one of the ideas, and I think I had mentioned it, that we know that some of our subgroups are not doing as well. And just thinking out of the box, something had caught my attention, and I did forward that to Mr. Freer and Central Admin here. So just interested if that's something that could be pursued. Maybe yes, maybe no, but some additional supports. And I believe that's all I have.
Thank you, Mike, for bringing this up in regard to our academic achievement at the schools. It's very important to me. We're done? Okay. Any correspondence? Did we get any correspondence? Nothing?
There's one.
Okay.
There's one. And
There is?
One notification
Yeah.
of the Friends of
Okay, I must have missed that.
Education.
Yeah, you see, yes. There is one in there.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Claire Van Valkenburg has been, will be recognized at the Ulster County School Board's meeting. I believe it's in April. Lisa, you have the exact date, I believe. She's our distinguished friend of education, and it is no longer secret. I was told by Dr. Corey's office that that letter went out to inform her this week. So I did meet up with Maggie prior to that going out and gave Maggie a heads up and told her not to tell her mother, and that she could go home and tell her mother she knew something that she didn't know. So she was all excited about that.
And she kept her word. I checked tonight.
Did she? That's
did.
great. No, Claire is absolutely incredible. She's been a great force at the high school. She's been an incredible force all through the time that she's been here in Highland, and she reinvigorated the high school. I want to say HSA, but the PTSA. I keep stumbling on that word. She reinvigorated the PTSA here at the high school, so thank you to Claire.
Isn't it?
Great. May 26th.
I guess they're both pretty close.
Okay, now comes the time for public comments. Anything of general nature? Okay, no public comments. All right, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Ed and Heather. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thanks for all you're doing. You did.